and welcome to another beautiful day here in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor. Thanks for tuning in to the Unlicensed Counselor podcast. So grateful, as always. Just going to keep hammering the grateful part. Just so grateful to be here, grateful to be able to talk. Just had some fun conversation before we got on air here with some of the friends in studio. Boy, it is a lot of fun to get to kind of do things that you're passionate about, and kind of bringing this podcast to my life, to kind of others across the country and even across the globe has been really just so much fun, right? Just so much fun. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your day in your car, wherever you're at, listening and kind of listening to some of the thoughts I have on various topics. So I'm going to talk about some interesting things today. As always, you know, the title that I came up with is The Problem with Care. All right, I want to talk about the treatment center industry a little bit. I want to talk about the lack of outcomes. I want to talk about a scandal, fraud that's actually going on here currently, which is why, again, I try and keep it a little bit topical here in the state of Arizona where I'm at. I know it doesn't pertain to the whole country, but I do think this happens with just Medicare billing and fraud, and how it's not only, you know, going to hurt others and the care and the cost and just all the different ramifications of that. Second half of the show, I want to talk about two different things that I think would be interesting, but let's maybe save that for a few minutes and circle back to it. Before we get too far into the problem with care today, as always, I want to take a minute and say thank you to our sponsors. First off, our friends at ShareTech. You've heard me talk about ShareTech. It is the world's most comprehensive and accurate drug and alcohol screen, right? Drug and alcohol screen. We screen for over 100 substances, a very unique process that requires no observed collection. You know, when I was actually part of the team that started this company, that was one of the most appealing things about this entirely new way of doing drug and alcohol screening. You know, the stigmatization of having to go into a room, right, and actually put eyes on the process to ensure somebody is not cheating is an outdated way of doing it, and it doesn't have to be done anymore. So go to betterdrugtest.com, purchase one of these tests. I guarantee you're going to be more confident in knowing that your loved one is not using X, Y, or Z drug or alcohol after you've gone through the ShareTech drug test. Next up is our friends at Easy Sheets as well. Again, whether you're a short-term rental or just a connoisseur of sheets, get that nicely pressed, crisp sheet, professionally cleaned and sent right to your door. We have multiple programs. They can be sheets that just are dedicated for you, or they could be in a pool of sheets that you could be using and changing from flannel to temperature cooling to whatever it is you want. Go to easysheets.club. I think you're really going to be surprised at how much you're going to enjoy that service. Last two plugs, go to theunlicensedcounselor.com, book some time with me. You like what you hear, want to spend a little bit more time. Actually does kind of tie into one of the points I want to talk about today is access to care and getting in to see someone and how that can be challenging, whether that's cash-based or insurance and different things like that. And last but not least, our friends at Stitch Fix. I'm talking to you. Ship me out a box one of these days, and we'll call it even for all the free publicity we've been giving you. So, okay. Awesome. So good to be here. Something that's really been on my mind lately is I hear the phrase, access to care a lot when it comes to counseling, when it comes to behavioral health services, when it comes to drug and alcohol treatment. You know, we get a lot of people that we need to make it easier to get to care. There needs to be more accessibility to care. And I've gotten to the point where I've started to get frustrated with that phrase, right? And let me set the table. There has never been a time in history ever where care is more available, accessible, specific to each and every condition that you may be addressing. There is telehealth, there is virtual sessions, there is cash pay services, there are insurance-based services. The state by state and federal government provides aid and resources and social service programs. There are services that will pick you up and take you to that. And I'm not talking about Uber and Lyft. I'm talking about specific companies that are behavioral health organizations that will take you or your loved one, if they're unable to get there, and drive them to their appointment. I mean, accessible to care is, in my opinion, no longer a thing. Sorry. You got a smartphone, you got services that'll pick you up and take you wherever you need to be. We need to just eliminate that phrase, access to care. It just doesn't exist anymore. Care is everywhere. It takes a little bit of motivation to find it. Now, if you want to push back and say, Steve, Well, but care is it's expensive, or sometimes it takes a long time to get in. Okay, now we can have a conversation that the cost of some of this care is a little cost prohibitive or expensive for some people, or maybe they don't have the budget to add that. I'm willing to entertain that conversation of like, look, it's 150, 200, 3, 4, whatever it is, a couple $100 a month to go and see a counselor on a regular basis. For a lot of families, if you're going once a week or every other week and it's $150, $200 session, you're adding a car payment to your monthly budget each and every month, right? And that's significant. I understand that. But I get frustrated when I continue to hear people just saying, that we need to make it easier and more accessible folks to get to these care. If we want to make it more reasonably priced in some way, shape, or form, or subsidized in some way, shape, or form, now I'm listening, right? I get it. But let's also remember that insurance can and does cover this. I think where people often run into a problem with this access to care and cost to care thing is everybody wants the best, right? I want the best surgeon. I want the best specialist. I want the best, Look, I've spoken on other podcasts. There are certainly levels of good within therapists, counselors, social workers that are going to be better than others. Like, I understand that. But when you're in a situation that warrants you needing to seek counseling service or your loved one needing to seek counseling service, it is almost always going to be better for you to just make sure that you get in to see someone and start talking and working through. The level of training that individuals have to become counselors, therapists, social workers, whatever, there's at least guidelines and standards that you can know that hopefully they're going to have an idea of what they're talking about and can offer some support, maybe a point in the direction of the resources. Maybe you're not in love with that person. I get it. But getting to sit down with someone and starting to have the conversation with them about exactly what's going on in your life is going to be so much better for you, whether or not that person is the best counselor, quote unquote, or not. And now, let me also say this. There's been an explosion of peer support folks as well, whether it's a recovery coach or, these kind of peer mentors that are out in the world that are obviously going to be cost less than maybe your traditional counselor. And I would like to think that they're screened or have gone through some training process, which most of the time that they have. And again, if that's the starting point for you to just reach out to engage someone to start going through whatever's going on, it's still better than just sitting there stuck in those feelings, thoughts, emotions, stewing, not making any forward progress, and really, not getting anywhere, and again, not getting better. So, I wanted to come out and really start saying that, doing something's better than doing nothing. The issue isn't access to care. It may be cost of care. And I am seeing a lot in the industry as well, too, that there's long wait times to get into folks as well, too. One of the things, and I've said this on multiple podcasts, I think, too, if we could start treating counseling therapy as kind of a wellness thing so that you need it, you're using it before you need it versus crisis mode. Things are going on, life blowing up, crashing down on me. Now I need to reach out and, this person's 3, 4, 5 weeks out before I can see them. If you had been engaged with that person, again, maybe this could be on a once a month basis, right? That's cost effective. You're kind of managing whatever's going on in your life. They have an idea of your background, because the first session or two, truthfully, especially if you're going in crisis mode, are going to be history, background, almost just like a screening and questionnaire, which you will have to do before you even sit down and start digging into whatever issue or crisis is going on. So I wish if people listen to this, reach out to somebody. Go once a month right now and just use it as a tune-up. I got my oil changed today on my truck, and it's like, you know what? It's preventative maintenance, right? If we start thinking of counseling like preventative maintenance, and then if things get challenging, you have someone there that's already armed with kind of who you are, what's going on, and may be able to better or shorten the duration of said crisis as well, too. So, that's been coming up. You're going to see that in a lot of the behavioral health world. And again, there's My biggest frustration is it just becomes such an echo chamber in behavioral health, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn, and just kind of people just saying the same things over and over again, call it virtue signaling or what, but it's just the same sea of sameness. And I'm just going, let's think about things a little bit differently. Let's think about what are actually the root causes of this, right? And if it's cost of care, maybe we can address that, or maybe there's other ways that we can, kind of support people. So something to think about. Now, the other side of this that I wanted to dovetail and talk about is, on the treatment side of this is trending in the state of Arizona right now, is that there was what's looking like, and I don't think the final number is out yet, just in the state of Arizona, there has been over $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion in fraudulent billing for outpatient programs here in the state of Arizona. What's funny is I was talking to some folks before actually bringing this subject onto air like we're doing today. I was actually warned. This is a true story. I was actually warned to be careful about talking about this because the individuals and organizations that have set up this billion-dollar fraud, it's a criminal enterprise. So, that's how serious, significant, and I guess this has been going on in other states as well, too. But look, I'm not sharing anything that isn't all over the news and on the headlines right now, that this is a billion-dollar fraud, specifically for intensive outpatient programs where this certain plan was recruiting people who didn't need treatment. They were getting almost trafficked into these programs just so that they could bill for that butt being in a seat, and maybe not even actually being in the seat as well too, where they can now bill an entire rate for whatever the CPT code is for that outpatient program. And this went, to give you the scope of what we're talking about here, this was the 4 years, at least that we're aware of, I think at this point, starting in 2019 and running through 2022. This started as kind of a $50 million fraud, $130 million fraud, $290 million fraud, and escalating to $668 million in the year 2022. That is a massive part in the state of Arizona. We call it Access, which is the state Medicaid system. This is over $1 billion. So there are some tremendously bad players out here in the industry. And I'm sure this is probably going on in other states across the country right now. And it's incredibly sad because not only is this, causing a lot of people who were trafficked into this, who maybe were promised help that didn't get the help because they got linked up with over 100 organizations that have now been suspended who are participating in this specific type of fraud. But now on the good player side in the treatment center industry as well too, the code that people were using, which was actually a valid code that was helping many people who couldn't afford care, right? Going back to my earlier point in the cost of care, they have completely eliminated and capped that code. So what was, let's call it $400 or $500 a day, has now been capped at $150 a day. And the organizations that were providing, state-funded treatment for this, I think we're going to unfortunately see a lot of respected people I know, organizations, treatment centers, outpatient programs that are probably going to have to make significant changes and potentially even close the doors, impacting how many people can get care and help, because that was really their only way to afford care, right? So all of these bad players have now impacted not only the people that they just committed the fraud on, but now to the people who were doing all the good things within the state of Arizona. They've pulled back the reins so far that now we're going to hurt the people who are actually doing the right thing. And it's really going to close the door and actually hamper not only the cost of care and the access to care as well, too. So it's really sad and frustrating. And I think in the behavioral health world, this stuff happens all the time. So it makes me mad because the behavioral health community really is the laughingstock of medicine, right? We have no outcomes. There's no documented improvements. Oftentimes, you can look at drug testing as a tool. People relapse and they're turning over and going through this. And people in the behavioral health world like to compare addiction to a disease. And I don't get caught up in that, but I'm like, in one, there's more stringent ways to manage and kind of see recovery on the physical medicine side of this things versus kind of this nebulous behavioral health world. And we really are the laughing stock. And then you lawyer in, not that there's not fraud on the actual medical side of this, but the amount of fraud that feels like it happens so regularly, so often, that is oftentimes people who were maybe in recovery, who then got into the business of behavioral health, who now are just out here ripping people off and ripping organizations off to the tune of tens and hundreds and now billions of dollars across the country. And you wonder why people are so leery to go stick their loved one in a 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 outpatient or treatment center type of program. And going, yeah, I get it. Like, it's just oftentimes run by criminals, right? There's just no better way to say it than it's often run by criminals. And until the licensing, the organization, the rules, the people are handing out a lot of these things, get their act together, we have better audits across all of these organizations. I mean, how do you not see from 50 million in billing for this one specific code to 668 million? There's not a report that goes across somebody's desk and goes, hey, hello, something's going on here. This seems out of whack. So, obviously that's just in the state of Arizona, but this happens in Florida, this happens in Texas, New York. I mean, this is happening everywhere, right? And it's sad because it just tarnishes all the good players, but I get it. And I'm not sure what the answer is at the moment. There's the Joint Commission, which is kind of the accrediting, for a lot of these organizations nationwide. There's state government run, organizations that kind of handle the licensing. I think we got to clamp down, whether it's background checks, more audits, whatever it is. This industry needs to get a better reputation, and we can't continue to allow these bad players to just ruin it for the rest of us. I mean, now we're going to go backwards in care. And they just released the 2022 opioid overdose deaths, although I like to say poisonings because I really believe it's a poisoning, not a death. And we've gone up 2%. And it's like, oh, wow, it's not 20 or 30 or 50%. So it's like, but wait a second, we were at record highs before. So yeah, I went from 109 to whatever 2% more of that is. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. So it's like, when you read that, it's like, all right, good work. And I'm like, no, this is still terrible. Like, there's still 100 plus thousand people that we could have prevented if we would have maybe been able to find them the right level of care in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know. This stuff has just been pissing me off a little bit. And I wanted to come out just kind of saying, shame on Arizona, shame on the criminals, really. And then I feel for a lot of the providers that are out there in their community that are going to get stuck holding water for the bad acts that are out there across the state. Frustrating, super frustrating stuff. Okay, couple other things I want to talk about. I can't take credit for this topic, but as I kind of go through social media, I like to keep an eye on, kind of some of the other trending topics that are out there. And I came across this one that I thought was kind of unique. And again, not taking credit for it. I think it was actually on a TikTok, as I saw. But it was a really interesting approach where it was like this approach of kind of letting someone who's kind of trying to steamroll you or have their way, or they're not meeting your expectations. In the examples that this individual is giving, it's like, you're dating someone and they want to go. Let me start that over again. They want to go out and do something that you're not on board with, right? Like, they want to go. Let me just share the example that I have here. Stop wasting time and energy trying to get other people to meet your expectations. And the point of what she was doing is like, let them, right? Like, let's just stop trying to control and let's let them show who they truly are, right? And the way that she put it on TikTok that I thought was really interesting is like, you get to control what you do next then, right? So your kid wants to stay up a little bit late. Okay, fine, let them, right? Your boyfriend, girlfriend wants to do something you don't agree with, let them. Like, let's stop trying to control what we can't control from some of these other people as well. So I really thought it was just an interesting little phrase where it was like, just let them. And when I heard that, and then I started kind of trying to apply it in my own world, I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, this is kind of a cool too. It's something I don't agree with, right? But I'm not going to sit here and get all twisted up over something that, okay, you're showing me who you really are. Fine, let them, right? And I'll just kind of sit back. And some people say, wow, that's, too passive, or you're getting steamrolled or something like that. And I'm like, no, let me see who you really are. And then, you know what? I'll get to make my decision on how I want to do this afterwards, right? And if it comes out that this isn't a person that I want to be with or a approach I agree with, then that's fine. But I thought it was really kind of cool. And it was almost freeing in a sense as I was sitting here kind of noodling on it as well. I was like, let them. They're doing X, Y, and Z, just let them. Right. So I don't know, just a little nugget that kind of came across my desk this week. I was like, I think I want to mention that. You can probably find it on TikTok if you search let them. I think it was TikTok or Instagram, one of those. I can't keep track of all of them, and oftentimes those things get shared back and forth. But it was a little nugget just on kind of I like little thoughts, right, that you can kind of implement very easily and kind of see how it works in your world, right? Like not everything has to be some huge cognitive behavioral therapeutic approach to this. There's value in all that stuff, but it's like I love a little ism that can kind of run through my brain when something's kind of maybe pissing me off or getting me frustrated or something. It's like, all right, let's let them. So yeah, let's just see how this thing plays out a little bit, right? So as always, when I find something, a little nugget, I like to pass that along. Okay, now back half of the show, I want to talk about a little bit of a topic. It was actually a question that came in, and I try and pick topics as always that I have some interest in as well too. And this is one that I've been struggling with myself as well too. And the question was, how do I forgive someone? Right? How do I forgive someone? And this one has been it's been on my mind quite a bit. I've got some stuff that I've got to kind of work through on my own here. And I had some family business stuff that was really challenging, right? And I wouldn't say that, we're past that. I've got my ex-wife and some of her behavior or that I don't agree with as we were leading